Welcome to the Books Between Friends podcast.
3 lifelong friends,
one shared obsession.
Books.
From epic fantasy to page-turning thrillers.
We dive into the stories we love
And the ones we just can't stop talking about.
So take a seat,
Grab a drink,
and get cozy.
All right, hey book friends, this is your lore master for today's episode here, and welcome back. Speaking of cozy, what is keeping you cozy these days?
So not a lot of people know that I recently got braces, specifically Invisalign bracelets. So you kind of have to take them out when you want to drink or eat anything, really. And so I got them weeks ago, and I finally got to drink a cup of coffee this week, and it was freaking heaven. And I forgot how cozy it makes me feel whenever I have like that first sip. And so I had it this past weekend, and I remember like taking out my braces, sitting down, like having my cup of coffee, and like that first sip was just like, it was bliss. I was just like, I forgot how good this is.
Oh, you're in your own Folgers commercial.
I was, but I miss coffee so much, and I forgot how much I love just waking up on the weekends, making a cup of coffee, sitting down, and just being, you know? And so that's kind of what's kept me cozy this week.
and having coffee.
No, because it hurts so much to take out my braces that I just wasn't taking them out as often. I would take them out just to eat, and then that was it, and then I'd put them back in. But now that my teeth are used to it, I'm used to it. Like now I'm finally allowing myself to drink coffee. And then too, after you get your wisdom teeth removed, you can't have anything hot. So you have to wait a while before you can drink anything like super hot. So I was waiting, and I kind of waited a little longer than I should have. But because I had like 6 teeth removed, I really wanted to wait. So I'm getting to finally enjoy my coffee again, and it makes me so happy.
If I had to choose between eating breakfast and coffee, it would be coffee.
Exactly, yeah, same.
Because I get the caffeine headaches, and so I have to have at least that 1 cup of coffee in the morning.
Thankfully, though, I haven't had those caffeine headaches, so like maybe I'm not as addicted as I thought I was, but I have just been making me so cozy and so happy these past few days. Like that's all I've been looking forward to.
Cool.
Yeah. What about you guys?
My cozy this week has been, 3 years ago tomorrow, we got our dog, Oliver James. And so today he got groomed, and he got a cute little new bandana, and we bought him a little cake to give to him tomorrow. So it's just been exciting celebrating him.
Little Ollie. I love him.
I love that. Copper just turned 4 not too long ago. So
Yay.
So young.
I know. So cozy for me has been Throne of Glass.
Yes.
I'm just so happy you're finally reading this.
I know, I'm finally reading. It's like the world is ending because this is what's happening. Like, no, hell hasn't frozen over. Ethan's just reading Throne of Glass. So, yeah.
Love it.
It's pretty good, I will say. I think what kept me hesitant for so long is first because love triangles in general. And I felt like after reading Throne of Glass that's where it was kind of going. Way back when I first read it the first time. Since I've reread it, and I don't mind it as much anymore, but there's so much more going on in the story.
Totally.
Now that I'm further in and just read past Throne of Glass. So I read in the month, because we're doing this episode in May, at the end of May. And in the month of May, I finished both Crown of Midnight and Assassin's Blade. And I loved all of the novellas in Assassin's Blade.
Yeah.
I thought that was really well written. You get more character development, you get more world building in that series. And so I've been doing a mix of having the physical book and reading and listening to the audiobook. So whenever I go see Nick on the weekends, that's a longer commute. And so like I'll listen to it, and I've been taking more walks throughout the day, so I'll listen to it when I'm on a walk. And so that is the only reason I've been able to read both of them this month. But yeah, it's been keeping me cozy because it's a good book. And when you read a good book, you're just in a different state of mind.
Yep.
Totally.
And that's a cozy state of mind right now. So
I can't tell you how happy I am that you're reading the series because like you're on Air of Fire and I'm just like there's so much that happens in that book. I just cannot wait for you to like
I would
this
say
is like a turning point in the storyline.
It is, yeah.
Air
Oh,
of Fire.
100%.
Yes, that's what
So
y'all
good.
have told me. That's what I've heard from others. So I think I'm probably a little more than a fourth of the way finished with Air of Fire.
Okay.
Okay, cool.
So yeah, so
And
I'm closing in.
I promise you, like, we try really hard not to ruin anything. Like, we have been holding back on comments we want to make. Trust me.
Yeah.
Yes, y'all did promise me that once I got to Air of Fire that it was like a turning point, and you can sense that. Like even with the first chapter, you can sense that it's going to be different, especially after having read Assassin's Blade, and you get more of the world building and characters and stuff like that. You know, there's more to come, and so Air of Fire is just running. Is just running away with it. I'm very much enjoying it.
Awesome. Well, I'm
so excited for you.
I know.
I love this journey for me.
I know. I'm so glad that we are there to experience it with you because I'm telling you, there's so much that happens.
That's like one book that if I could just like erase my memory for like reading the first time, I would so do it for this book so I could
100%.
read it again for the first time.
100%.
It's such a great experience.
I'm like rereading that again and I'm barely on Crown of Midnight and I'm just like, oh, I remember how amazing this fucking novel is. Like,
yeah.
But speaking of books, like good news to you guys and to listeners out there, I am finally reading Harry Potter. And I am so sorry to J.K. Rowling. I really deeply apologize that I have not read this sooner. But I am really enjoying the book. So I'm about maybe like a third way in. So I just got to the point where Harry just went through the sorting hat, right? And I thought that it was gonna be really hard for me to get through it because I've seen the movie, so I know the story, right? But I'm really enjoying Harry's inner monologue, like really experiencing his feelings, like everything that he's feeling up until the point of like getting to Hogwarts, like experiencing everything for the first time.
It's so relatable, isn't it? Yeah. Even though it's like a magic world, like you can just, the thoughts that he has are the thoughts that I could see myself having in this situation.
Exactly. Like
at that age,
I'm feeling what he's feeling, like these relationships that he's trying to build and like trying to experience everything for the first time, not really having people to lean on. Like it's just been so amazing. And again, like there are parts that I read, I'm like, yeah, I remember that from the movie, but I don't remember feeling that way when I was watching the movie.
Totally.
And so I have been really loving this book. I think I have 2 hours from finishing the story. So I really want to finish it by this week, but it's so good. I already bought Chamber of Secrets, so I'm going to just continue reading it.
So we are concluding our read today over A Darker Shade of Magic by V.E. Schwab. This is our first read on our pod since Onyx Storm, the one that got us all started. And again, a reminder that I have read this one before, so I am like the facilitating guide of this conversation, even though it feels like I'm just reading it for the first time because it has been a while since I've read it. But Steph and Jen are reading it for the first time. So we're ready to dive on into the discussion today.
Yes, friends. And before we get started, quick spoiler warning. If you're listening to this episode, we are assuming that you have read the very first book of this series. So there will be spoilers throughout. And just as a reminder, the Darker Shade of Magic is divided into 14 different parts, not chapters. And so today what we're going to be doing is covering parts 11 through 14. But before we get into our deep dive, let's discuss where we left off. So previously on A Darker Shade of Magic, infecting anyone it touches, Holland proved himself a terrifying threat, taking out Baron and chasing Kell and Lila across London's. While the danger back in Red London ramped up with the royal court, shady pawnbrokers, and magic spreading like an unstoppable rot. We saw Lila step into the fight, Kell struggle with the weight of his choices, and the stakes rise to a point where returning the stone to Black London is their only hope, if they can survive long enough to do it. So, let's jump in and see how it all unfolds in the final sections. So let's get into our deep dive, guys. I'm really excited to talk about this one.
Yeah.
Yes. So a lot happens here, but before it actually does, I feel like it slows pace a little bit, just a little bit, not too much, but just a little bit to kind of regroup because the ending of our last section was very fast paced. And so we're at the masquerade now. But before we step on into the masquerade, Lila has a lot of moments in this section. We start off with Lila, and she's, debating on whether or not to get a new wardrobe for this masquerade party. And she goes about it in her Lila fashion. I love this moment where we get Lila just being a person, right? Even though she has of wanting a new wardrobe to fit in with the masquerade, like she belongs there, she kind of relishes the experience.
Well, okay, so I thought it was funny at first. She knew she had to get to the palace because that's where they were taking Kell. And she had that gut feeling that she needed to rescue him because something was off. And she noticed that people were going in dressed up for a ball. And so everybody apparently was like showing their invitation at the ball. And of course, she needed to figure out how to get an invitation. And Lila, being Lila, she's going to pickpocket someone for that invitation. And it was funny that she just so happened to run into the group of girls that she ran into when she was witnessing the parade. But because she was still wearing her regular drab clothes from Grey London, they kind of like poo-pooed her and thought nothing of her. But, joke's on them because she actually stole their invitation. So they're not even going to get in. And then she has to figure out what to wear. So that's where we turn to this part that we were talking about her fashion upgrade.
Yeah. And I will say like these sections or like parts 11 through 14, I had no complaints about Lila. Like I know the last episode I kind of complained a little bit about her and I said she's a little bit annoying, but honestly these parts I was just like, yes, everything she did was so good. It was just so touching. I cannot wait to get into like every Lila moment because honestly she kind of stole the show for me in these sections. She was, to me, the shining star. And so I really love this part. And, one of the things that Steph mentioned was about like her stealing it. And that honestly made me laugh because I was just like, of course she has to steal before she has to go into the masquerade. But one of the things I really liked when she was picking out her outfit for this was the mask that she chose. Like she has to be very Lila. And I loved that even it went down to the mask that she chose for the masquerade. And so it said on there, when she was like looking at all the different masks, she found one that she really liked and it said, "This one was beautiful in a different way, an opposite way. It reminded Lila less of dresses and finery and more of sharpened knives and ships on the seas at night. It looked dangerous." And so she ends up picking a mask that has these like devil horns. And so I was just like, that is just so Lila. And it made me laugh because she could have easily picked out a dress. She could have easily tried to pick out like some frilly masks to really blend in. But of course, that's not her. And so I loved it.
Yeah. One thing about Lila is she's always going to be Lila.
Oh, yeah.
So
100%.
I love that.
Yeah. I love
and
it.
instead of a dress, she picked out a pantsuit. So she picked like nice boots and like pants and a really nice jacket. And she was ready to try to steal everything. But fortunately, Kala, which was the owner of the shop that she was looking around in, actually offered it to her for free. Well, not for free. She said, "You'll pay me back later in your own way," right?
Yeah.
And she agreed, And then something that really stood out to me in this section, and I noticed this before when I think it was when Baron had helped her out with Kell, but there was a quote that I wanted to mention. It says, "She hated charity. Even when people thought they were giving something away freely, it always came with the chain, a weight that set everything off balance." And she kind of expressed this, similar sentiment again with Baron when he helped her out with Kell and allowed them to stay at his inn, even though obviously they were bringing danger at his doorstep. So she just has this, again, coming back to her moral compass. She really doesn't like being in debt to someone. And so she promised Kala that she was going to pay her back somehow, some way. So I just thought that was interesting and something to point out, just another point about her character. And it also showcases the cynicism. Earlier, we find out, I think, in one of the first sections that she's only 18. And she's got this cynicism about the world, and she really doesn't have much to her name except for the trinkets that she keeps in her pockets, So it kind of was a little bit of a sad moment, but like also a moment of strength for her. Like, no, I'm going to pay you back. Like, it's
Yeah.
I'm going to make sure that this debt is paid, you know?
Yeah, I almost saw it as a moment of realization for Lila. Like every trial or every obstacle that I've had to overcome has made me who I am and how I operate today. And so like this is just me. This is how I do business. This is how I operate. And there was like a moment of understanding between her and Calla. Like Calla seems to like get her kind of people. She's like, okay, I get you, right?
Yeah.
Like, you know, you will pay me back. You'll pay me back in your way, but you know, this is for you for right now. And so, yeah, I love that whole exchange. And so with new wardrobe and stolen ticket in hand, she makes her way up to the masquerade she's now in, right? She's been announced. No one really pays attention to the announcer. I laughed at that kind of moment too. He's like, what should I call you as to announce you to the party? She's like, I don't freaking know. Like, what name does she choose? She chooses
Captain Bard.
Yeah, so I guess a little bit of foreshadowing there of what could be in the future.
Yeah.
But now that she's in, y'all, we know what's been happening in this masquerade party already. So we, the reader, have an idea of what kind of briar patch that Lila has just stumbled into. And it's really intense because you don't know, you know, if she's going to be approached by someone that's been infected with this magic. And then she meets some important people while they're at this masquerade, and she has a kind of like a badass moment there. But before we get into that, like, did y'all feel the tension as much as I did?
I mean, it was already high stakes from the moment Kell was taken. So I knew that no matter what moment she stepped into, like, it was going to be tricky no matter what. But to me, like, what really got me was that she, again, just goes back, and we made this comment, like, I remember making this, or Stephanie, you made this comment back in our last episode about her being so observant, right? Because she's like, she pickpockets, right? So she's just so observant of like what's going on around her. And she, for whatever reason, happens to be the only one that really picks up on the weirdness between the king and queen when she approaches them.
Yeah.
And so that to me was a big moment where it's like nobody dares to look at the king and queen in their eyes. Nobody dares to look at them, right? Because you're royalty. I think if I were in front of a royals, like I'd be so nervous to be in front of somebody. I don't think I could look you in the eyes. Like I would keep my head bowed the whole time. But that's not her. She dared to look in their eyes, and that's what she noticed. Shit, like we are really in some deep shit right now because she noticed that their eyes were like glazed over.
Yeah, and what was funny about that moment is that, so after she gets introduced as Captain Bard, she noticed that there's a line up to greet the royals, and they're like greeting all the guests and stuff, but it doesn't seem like it's required to go say hi to them. But Lila being Lila, she's not intimidated by anybody, even a couple of royals, right? So she's like, I'm gonna go say hi. And then with her like her observant nature, I think did she mention something about Kell? Oh yeah, she said that she was Kell's friend.
Yes. Yep.
And then she asked, where's Kell? Because trying to like see if she can get some information. Yeah. And they were like, oh, he's fine. I'm sure it's fine. It's totally fine. And they just kept saying everything's fine.
Yeah.
He's just
really
not
generic
here.
responses.
Yeah. Which was also another cue for her. Like, okay, their eyes are glazed over, and they're saying he's fine way too much. So this is weird.
Right. And the only thing she has to compare it to is the guard that she saw kill Fletcher. Right. She was like, there was something with his eyes that resembles how the king and queen are acting. And so that's how she kind of figured that something was off. She knew something was off, period, just because Kell's been taken.
Right.
But then, she recognizes that kind of glitch in the eyes. So we kind of shift perspective, and now we're to Kell, who is kind of being held hostage yet again. Like, come on, Kell. I think this is the third or fourth time in one book.
I know.
Where he's sitting in a chair.
I don't know.
Like tied to something.
Oh, Kell.
Right. And then lo and behold, it's Rye that has him. But is it Rye?
I panicked. I really did. Like whenever I turned, so of course, like Lila's being clever and like she was like, oh, I have an idea, because she's trying to figure out, because she notices, of course, the one door that's being guarded. She's like, oh, that's where he is, right? And so as soon as the POV changes and we talk about Rye being there, I was like, no, I couldn't have been right. Because I know I changed like first episode, I talked about Rye being the one that was kind of a suspect for me. And then second episode, I kind of turned the shift onto the twins. But I just didn't want it to be true. Not because I like Rye, because I still kind of think he's a little suspicious, but because I know I have my reasons, y'all.
All right.
But because Kell loves him so much. And so that is a huge betrayal to him. And so like my heart was breaking for Kell. I was like, no, it cannot be right. He cannot have been the one who betrayed him. That's his brother. He loves him so much. But then once it got revealed that it was Astrid, I was like,
yeah.
Like I gasped so loud in my living room. My dog got scared. He was like, what happened? What happened? I was like, Baxter, it's okay. Like it was just Astrid. He just looks at me like, okay.
But it's not okay because it's Astrid.
I was like, this bitch is sneaky and powerful. Yeah. I was really surprised by this like turn of events. Like,
but you called it last time.
I did.
It's the White Royals that do this type of spell on people.
I know. Jen is 2 for 2.
But okay, yes. But what surprised me is the possession part. That's what surprised me. I was like, wait. I was like, you're telling me you're that powerful you can possess a royal?
That's crazy.
Yeah. That's what had me in a chokehold.
Also we know that Rye's magic ability is not that great. So
true, but like you're telling me she can possess anyone. That's scary.
Yeah.
What has she been doing this whole time?
As they're talking, Kell and Rye, he notices that he's wearing a pendant that matches exactly the one that Astrid wears.
Yes.
And so it's actually Astrid in Rye's body, which, oh my God, that's so scary.
Yeah.
And pretending to be Rye. So he's like trapped in his own body with this evil person. Yeah. Like controlling his body.
Yes. It sent chills down my spine, honestly. It was so freaky and eerie. Yeah. Right? I can just imagine Rye talking to Kell with like this evil gleam in his eye, right? Because it's Astrid speaking through him, and just, a different inflection in his voice, a different tone, obviously a darker tone that this is taking place. So the whole thing was just written really well because it was uncomfortable to read. I was like, oh, man, poor guy. But so I'm sure it's in the book. I just can't remember, but he's wearing the pendant that links Astrid to him.
Yeah.
But y'all remember, how is she controlling the other royals?
So it's under a compulsion spell.
She just put a spell on them.
Yeah.
A compulsion
spell.
Yeah.
Which we come to find out later, which we'll get into later, but she has her whole castle under a compulsion spell. I'm sorry. She has her whole castle under a compulsion spell, but
like all the guard and stuff.
Yeah.
So Lila comes in, right? Like I said, this section was huge for Lila, and she has another, Lila saves the day moment, right? The first one being where she knocks some Holland to the ground to save Kell, and now she's saving Kell again.
Yep. Okay, so before we get into Lila's badass moments, because I'm telling you, like, these few parts that I read, I'm like, loved Lila, like, fell in love with her. Not that I didn't love her before, she had her moments where I'm like, for me, okay? But before we get into that, I really want to get into what Astrid revealed. And it's so funny because, like, I think back on villains, right? All these, like, famous villains that, like, love to reveal, like, their big secrets when they think they're about to win,
their grand plan.
I know. I'm like, can y'all be more stupid? Anyways,
I know, Disney villain formula, right?
Exactly. And so Astrid does the exact same thing. So she reveals that, in fact, there are 2 halves of the stone, and that Athos has the other half, and that she did set up Kell for this half of the stone. And so he asked, he's like, well, why not just get Holland to retrieve the other half? She was like, because I wanted you. And I knew it. She made that one comment, y'all. I mentioned it in episode 1 where she was just like, I want him. And I said, she's going to do some shit to get Kell on her side. And so she's trying to use the stone, not only to tether Kell to her, but she wants to use the stone to unite both halves to open up the world between white and black. No, it was between white and red London. because she wants her and her brother to rule both Londons. And I was just like, holy shit, like, this bitch is crazy. Like, I mean, I already knew she was crazy, and we already knew that she was crazier than Athos, but to want to not only tether a freaking Antari to her, one, I think that's already a big ask. But two, she wants to open the freaking world to both Londons and rule them both. Like, who does she think she is?
Yeah. Well, they already have one Antari, Holland. So it's like they'll have a matching set, whatever. That was so creepy. And
but
yeah,
that was a big reveal.
Yeah.
Because I didn't know there was two stones.
Well, it goes back to that description of the stone, right, when he first encounters it, that it looks chipped or something. There's something.
There was like a jagged.
It looks like a fragment, right? And so that we can assume that that's where the other half goes to make it a full stone.
Yeah.
So, and it's also still a mystery to me because she said that Athos had this, like, ever since they were kids, had always liked to search for treasures or whatever, and that he just found this stone one day. But I'm like, truly though, why was this stone in White London? Where did he I want more in that regard. Like, what is truly the origin of this stone?
Where did you find it? Who left it behind? Yeah, like there's just so many questions I had as well. But I mean, in the middle of all that is when Lila came in and showed her little badass moment. But even so, like, yeah, she had her badass moment, but can she really face off a royal as powerful as Astrid, you know?
Well, like, so at first, you know, she gets to that hallway where she notices that there's one door guarded. So obviously that's the door to get to. But she knows she can't just like bulldoze through 3 guards. So she looks around and notices that one of the rooms has the door ajar and there's a balcony at the end of it. And she was like, I'm gonna hop the balconies and get to the room that way. So that was how she, like, that was her grand reveal in that moment. After Astrid just laid out her whole plan for what she was going to do with Kell and the stone, she pops up and at the balcony. And even though, like, Lila isn't powerful when compared to Astrid, at least not in a magic sense, like, she's scrappy. She always seems to find her way out of a sticky situation. And like, that was a moment of relief for me. I was like, oh, thank God, things are going to be good now because Lila's here for the rescue, you know?
Yeah. No, I totally agree. Like, I love that she is so scrappy, and I feel like she brings a gun to a magic fight. Like, who does that?
Yeah.
I was laughing because I'm imagining this girl, right? Like, I'm imagining
that.
Right. I guess you're right. Yeah. So I'm imagining
Captain
these two
Bard.
like powerful magicians, right? Like fucking crazy Astrid, Kell trying to like fight for his life. Like they have all this like fucking magic in between them, and here you go, like, oh nope, here's my gun, I'm gonna shoot you.
Pew 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 pew, magic pew pew, magic pew pew.
Well, it did work to distract Astrid.
Yeah, no.
She shot Rye in the thigh, but to distract Astrid because she's possessing his body. Yeah,
I'm not saying it didn't work.
It worked for something.
I just thought it was hilarious. I was like, here you go.
Totally.
You have this Antari who can wield all the elementals, has his Antari magic, has Astrid who's clearly crazy, and then you come in with a gun.
Hey, whatever works, I guess. That's also a Lila thing, right? Like, whatever works, I'm gonna do it.
That's true. Yeah. But I will say, like, one thing before we like move on, you know, this is also where Astrid knew Kell's weakness, right? So she knew Kell's weakness was Rye. She knew that that Kell was not going to do anything against his brother's body. And so she like threatens to kill Rye and like tries to stab him. And there's this whole scene where Lila doesn't know what to do. Kell doesn't know what to do. Astrid she stabs freaking Rye. He's like dying. And, you know, through this whole thing, like freaking Astrid escapes. You know, the necklace gets transferred to like other people. So you don't know which one is actually Astrid. But like, I love that Lila is Kell's like voice of reason. Like, She's snapping him out of the grief. She's like, hey, we have to go. You know, we have to get out of here or we're all going to die. Like, Kell doesn't want to hear anything. He doesn't want to do anything. He just wants to sit there with his brother in grief. And so, like, I know that last episode I said I really didn't want her to be there, but I think it's vital that she's there because she is the one pushing him. She is the one bringing him to reason. She is the one snapping him out of these decisions that he normally probably would have never done. And so, anyways, I really like that about her.
And isn't the gun from Grey London?
Yeah.
Okay, so you know what's funny is that, well, before I talk about that, let's go ahead. We're going to move on now. So, yes, that all of that is going on, right? Lila jumps in. Astrid is pretty much taunting Kell at this point, and she has a knife she's holding the knife herself through Rye's body, and she's holding the knife to Rye's rib cage, basically, pointing to the heart, and she's like, watch this. Like, watch what I do to you. And so she plunges the knife into Rye's body, and that's where we go into the next part. And so it's an emotional frenzy, right? Because Kell is distraught. He is beside himself. This is his brother that is dying. Yeah. So just with the emotional whiplash of the scene, and Kell is pretty much beside himself. Lila's trying to drag him out of it. And so they end up moving, right? They're going towards another place where they teleport to a different place in the city.
Kell takes him to the sanctuary where he was, I guess, like taught his magic by his master, right? Yeah. And so they get to this point where Rye is dead. Like, he's dying. Like, he's dead.
Yeah.
And so
no
Lila's,
we have no pulse.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, he kind of knew that, like, as they were transporting him, that he was dying. And then once we got there, he was dead, right? But Lila's, like, trying to talk reason into him. She's like, hey, it's over. It's done. Like, there's nothing you can do about this. Like, you just have to accept it. And for Kell, there's no accepting the fact that he just lost his brother. And so he does what he doesn't want to do and uses the freaking magic to try to bring Kell... He uses a freaking black stone to try to bring Rye back. And honestly, I'm not going to lie, I was very conflicted in this scene.
Totally.
I was more on Lila's side on this one. Yeah. Like, I understand. I get the panic. I get the grief. I get what Kell was feeling. Like, this is his only family that he felt he has. Like, he doesn't know where he's from. He doesn't know where he belongs. So he kind of feels like Rye is his only family. So, like, I get that. He couldn't accept his death, right? But I don't like that he endangered himself in the process of bringing Rye back, because, like, part of me still just thinks that Rye does not appreciate Kell, and he doesn't deserve the unwavering love and loyalty that Kell is showing here. Like, I don't see that, and I don't see the appreciation there. So, like, why is Kell going out of his way to endanger himself for somebody who doesn't appreciate him?
Yeah, so I had similar thoughts to you about this, Jen. So what he ends up doing is using the stone to make the stone bring him back by binding Rye's life to Kell's life. So if Kell dies, he dies. And if Rye dies, Kell dies. So they're bound now, no matter what. And I also thought, would Rye do the same for Kell? Like, I don't know that he would. At this point in time, I don't know that he would. And so that was my concern, is like, you're endangering yourself using the black magic in this way. And you're like binding yourself to this guy who I'm not sure would do the same for you, you know?
Right.
So I was also conflicted about this decision of his. And Lila was trying to be the voice of reason here. Like, he's gone, but we still have a mission to complete. We have to continue, you know?
Yeah.
But he couldn't help himself at this point. Like, he's just so adamant about his relationship with Rye and keeping Rye alive.
Yeah. I want to get your take on this as well, because I think it's just another symbolic gesture of just how arrogant Red London magic is, right? Like, who are you to bring someone back from the dead, right? Like, he is dead.
Totally.
And so usually it doesn't really work out too well when you bring someone back from the dead in past stories. Yeah. But yeah, Lila being the one from Grey London, right, who has experienced the loss without magic,
right?
You know, she is being that voice of reason. But it's a little ironic now because we get some confirmation that we've kind of been hinting at the whole time, that Lila is somehow magical.
Yes.
And we get a big reveal here from the master, Kell's master, who meets them in the sanctuary and starts, talking to them, asking some questions. He takes one look at Lila and mentions her eye, right? Which we have mentioned before.
Yeah.
Okay,
They were on their way to like transfer to White London.
But that's later.
Yeah. Well, this is kind of in the same like part, I guess, where they were like walking.
So at first when Master Tyrion meets Lila, I think he asked Kell about Lila, and he said something about her power.
No, they're walking,
confirming that she has power. And then when they were walking, Master Tyrion asked her, "What happened to your eye?"
To your eye, yeah.
But it was
implying something about her eye.
It was while they were walking to the gate. Kell and Lila were arguing because he intended for Lila to stay behind, and she kept like insisting that she wanted to go. And he said something about like, "You are no match for Astrid." And she goes, "Do you underestimate everybody or just like girls?" And then he said, "No, it's because you're human." And then the master goes, "Oh, she has actually magic in her." And she goes, "See, I told you." And then once they get to the gate and like Kell is like setting up to the transfer, then he like turns to Lila and asks about the eye.
Right. Okay.
So we learn, if it's not here, it's later, but either way, it all ties into the same part, that she has a glass eye this whole time. And it was mentioned before previously about her eye as well, that one was darker than the other, like a darker shade than the other. And then, it's revealed that it's a glass eye. So begs the question, right? Like, did she originally have a black eye? Was she Grey London's traveler? I thought that was a huge reveal.
Right. Like, I mean, it's been hinted at this whole time. Like, I saw it coming from that first interaction that Kell had with her, where he noticed the eye and said, "Why is one of your eyes darker than the other?" And so I figured, we talked about it last time, maybe that means that this is the Grey London version of Antari. It's not a fully black eye, it's just a darker eye, because the magic there is so, I guess, diluted.
Dull. Yeah.
But she has a glass eye, meaning that whatever used to be there is now gone, So I predict that it was a fully black eye, like she is Antari.
Yeah.
And, even Master Tyrion said she's got power. It just hasn't been awoken yet.
Right.
And it hasn't been trained. So like, I feel like that's where this is headed,
Well, that's exactly where my train of thought went to. Like, whenever, because I mean, again, we talked about it. We theorized last episode that, maybe it was just like a duller version because she is from Grey London. So maybe she does have Antari magic. We just don't know about it yet, or like she doesn't know about it yet, right? And so the minute he said, "Oh, what happened to your eye? Why is it glass?" I was just like, shit, what if like they took it out so that she didn't stand out? Because this happened when she was a kid, so she doesn't even remember, right? So what if her parents or whoever raised her, right, saw that eye, was like, nope, fuck that, take it out. Like, we're not going to mess with that at all. Got the glass eye. And so she never knew that she had to train for this, just like Kell trained, right? And the other thing too that I thought was like, even Kell mentioned, "Oh, she's from Grey London, she doesn't have magic." And then the master goes like, "There's no place that doesn't have magic. Like, there's magic everywhere." Right. So like there is magic in Grey London. It's just not being tapped into. So
and I mean, that's so true, because like in Grey London, where most people don't think there's magic, and so when an Antari is born, they don't immediately have this black eye. Their eye turns black over time at some point, so that's how it's revealed that they're Antari. And in this world where they don't know this, they're probably thinking like, something's wrong with her eye, we gotta get rid of it, so they probably had no clue that just meant she was magic, not that there was anything wrong with her.
Right. Yeah. I'm excited.
Yes. I'm excited as well. I have a prediction that I'll save until later, but when I read that part, I was like, ooh. And that was not a read against the reveal that there was a second half to the stone, because I was just as surprised as well. But I like this one was like, ooh, because I guess I was more excited about it because we had been hinting at this the whole time, right? Like maybe that is why she was drawn to certain items to steal, like, and she didn't even realize it, you know?
Yeah.
So that propels us into this next part where, again, I feel like they keep on having the same conversation. You have to stay here. No, I'm coming with you. You have to stay here. No, I'm coming with, like, full disclosure from Violet, right? Like,
so Violet.
But that's accurate.
I love you, girl, but woof.
But it's so weird though, because in those redundant conversations, like this is probably the 4th or 5th time that they've had this conversation.
Oh my God.
But you see development as they've had those conversations, right? Like it's so weird because it's the same thing, but with a little more attitude each time.
Well, so, like, again, it's his arrogance, because, like, he would not have made it this far if not for Lila. There are so many moments at this point where she has saved his ass.
She really has.
And he probably would have been dead by now or just completely failed this mission if not for Lila. And he's still insisting, no, you don't have power. No, you can't do this. And, like, also, we know that he's kind of scared by this mission. He wants someone to do this at his side. So, like, why not Lila? Lila has been nothing but loyal, scrappy, like, honestly, your savior so many times. So I was annoyed at, like, also with you, Ethan, like, here we go again. I want off this merry-go-round. Like, we already know Lila's coming. End of story, you know?
Yes. Yeah.
So I took this section as, like, a huge pivotal moment for Lila. So, like, I understand the trepidations Kell has, right? Like, I understand he wants to leave her behind. He doesn't, you know, like, he's scared. He doesn't know what's going to happen. There's so many unknowns. He doesn't want to bring Lila into this, right? Like, he doesn't know what's going to happen in White London. He doesn't know what he's going to face at Black London. Like, I get it. He obviously knows how ruthless and how freaking powerful Athos and Astrid are. So, like, he doesn't want to put that burden on Lila. So I get it. But I do love that Lila, like, stands up for herself over and over again. Like, again, you know, she has already proven herself, I think, to him. And even, like Kell says, like, you're no match for Astrid. And she goes, tell me, do you underestimate everyone or just me? And so I love that. I love her little, like, comeback quips to him. Like, just like, come on, dude. Like, have you not seen everything I've done for you thus far? Yeah. Like, come on. But the thing I loved the most about this section was her, like, little inner monologue that she was having with herself right before they crossed over. And so I mentioned it in the last episode where, like, I was annoyed that the only thing that she was really wanting was an adventure out of this, right? Like, she saw Kell, she saw the traveler part of him, and was like, oh, I can have an adventure. And so, like, that was annoying to me because it's like, you don't understand the magnitude of what's going on. But, like, she finally understood that here. And so it says right here, like, she admit that in the beginning, all she wanted was an adventure, but that wasn't why she was insisting now. The truth was she'd seen the change in Kell, seen the shadow sweep across his eyes when he summoned that clever curse magic, seen how hard it was for him to return to his senses after. Every time he used a stone, he seemed to lose a bigger piece of himself. So no, Lila wasn't going with him just to satisfy some thirst for danger. And she wasn't going with him just to keep him company. She was going because it'd come this far and because she feared he wouldn't succeed, not alone. And so I love that part because I'm like, okay, hello, growth. Thank you. Like, I'm so glad you're not just seeing this as an adventure anymore. Like, you actually care about Kell and about making sure he succeeds, and you care about the bigger picture now.
Yeah.
Right.
But you know,
like, I think it goes back to the noble heart thing that you brought up last time, Jen. Like, she now does understand the importance of this mission. And she's, again, super observant Lila. She notices that this mission might just kill Kell, or Kell may not be strong enough to complete this mission on his own. And like, again, with the noble heart thing, for whatever reason, she's been the voice of reason. She's been his savior throughout this mission. And she doesn't seem to be as affected by the stone as really anybody else.
Yeah.
So, like, of course she has to be on this mission. She was meant, this is her grand adventure, but for a bigger reason, not just for adventure's sake, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah. It's really interesting because she's wanted adventure this whole time. And now she's come to the realization that, yes, I would like to continue, but it's not for an adventure anymore, but truly because I think I need to be here. Like this is what the task at hand is. And so she's finally come to that realization. To your point, it's a great growth moment. Yep. But it's a little ironic because as soon as she accepts that, she gets thrown into an adventure all on her own. And so for a reminder for the listeners, you know, the whole mission was to return the Black Stone to Black London. And right now they're in Red London, but to get to Black London, they have to go to White London first. And so we're about to go into White London. And as Kell is, you know, using his blood to draw the portal, Ostravars, you know, they're about to go through. Lila does go through, but at the last moment before he steps through, he's yanked back by none other than the Antari of White London, Holland. So this was like...
Freaking Holland, right?
I know,
Fucking
right?
Holland.
This was like... I heard the operatic music from Star Wars come through, like when Qui-Gon Jinn is battling Darth Maul, and we're about to get this kind of battle between Kell and Holland.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, I was like, so much happens. Like, not only does Lila have to face off White London on her own, like, she's going through a lot by herself, but then freaking Kell is over here like battling Holland, which is a whole thing in itself, because like it comes to this like finale that I think that I wasn't really like expecting. So let's talk about Lila first, and then I'll get into like Holland and Kell, because it's like it's like two different things happening, right?
I know. Yeah. V. Schwab is incredibly talented at like having in tandem stories going on.
Yes. And I'm seeing this in my brain, like how it would play out in a movie, you know, like cut to Lila and her battle, cut to Holland and Kell and their battle, and back and forth.
Yeah,
and back
exactly.
And forth.
Yeah. So she gets to White London, and I'm like super nervous for her, because it's like, Kell tried to warn her, hey, this place is not what you expect. It's super dangerous. Like, you have to be careful when we get there. You have to be like very mindful. But like tries to warn her, and she's just like, yeah, I got it. And I think this is the first time she finally realizes, like, like, okay, it's dangerous. Like,
this is serious.
Maybe he had a point. Yeah.
And so she's having like this inner monologue where she just says, Kell had warned her of this world. He'd call it dangerous, but so much of Lila's own world had fit that term, so she hadn't given it much stock. After all, he'd grown up in a palace and she'd grown up on the streets, and Lila thought she knew a good bit more about bad alleys and worse men than Kell. Now, standing here alone, Lila was beginning to think she hadn't given him enough credit. Anyone, even a highborn, could see the danger here, could smell it, death and ash in winter air. She shivered, not only from cold, but from fear. And so she gets her first like dose of real fear here.
Yeah. Well, like instantly all these men start like coming up to her. And something I noticed is that they were saying to her, pretty blood, let me get some of that, you know? And like, I'm thinking this is further confirmation for me that she's possibly Antari, because, you know, blood magic, Antari, and they're commenting on her pretty blood. And I think even Astrid said something about her blood in their interaction earlier. So like, and, you know, the danger isn't only just palpable, it's like right in her face. And all these men are not just here to like steal from her or something, like they want her blood.
Yeah.
So it's scary.
And even like her weapons like don't scare them off.
Right,
that's how much they want her, and that's how much they crave her magic too, that they probably smell off of her.
Well, what brings more of them out is because she still has her gun.
Oh, right.
Oh my gosh.
So she uses it, but then if she is the Grey London Traveler, I just love that moment that she's already transferring items from different Londons, because she has the gun from Grey London.
True, yeah.
And she shoots it like an idiot, right? Like I'm thinking of The Walking Dead when I'm reading that, because, you know, in the first season, people would always use guns in The Walking Dead, but you don't do that because it draws more out to you.
Oh, right.
Because they hear it. And so it's the same way with that. I also had a moment where I was like, this reminds me a lot of Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone, or whichever one he goes into Nocturne Alley the first time. And so like that kind of foreboding where people are closing in on Lila, and she's like, oh, I don't like this. Okay, Kell had a point. Oh my gosh, I need to get out of here.
Yeah.
But then while she's dealing with that, we go back to Holland and Kell, who are having their pretty spectacular Voldemort versus Dumbledore moment.
Oh my God.
Right? Yes, and if you need any more other like book titles I can throw out there for you, like as I was reading this, those always flash in my mind. I'm like, what did this make me think of? Like, this is that same kind of feeling that I got reading this part. But what did y'all get with the battle between Holland and Kell?
So there were a couple of things that really stood out to me. The first thing, like, it wasn't as brutal. Like, this was a lot quicker. And there was a couple of comments that Holland made that really stuck with me that I really want to make sure I bring out and see what you guys think. Like,
yes.
So, like, I mentioned this last episode where I thought that Kell walked around a little bit too arrogant, right? He, like, claimed to be this, like, so powerful Antari. And then the moments and the scenes where we had him face off Holland, I was like, wait, he's not that powerful. Like, what's going on here? So I'm just like, okay, maybe you're a little too arrogant about your power. But something that Holland said, I was just like, yeah, that makes total sense. Holland says, do you know what makes you weak? You've never had to be strong. You've never had to try. You've never had to fight. And you certainly never had to fight for your life. But tonight that changes, Kell. Tonight, if you do not fight, you will die. And so, like, I really thought this was something, like, similar to what Lila told him. Like, hey, you grew up in a palace. Like, what do you have to complain about, right?
Yep.
And so, like, yeah, you're, like, it, like, solidified my thinking on Kell, right? That he was just kind of, like, this, like, pampered, arrogant kind of. I love Kell, so just putting that out there. I love him. He's, like, one of my favorites. But he does kind of walk around a little arrogant that he thinks maybe it's just like, oh, no one can touch me. Like, I'm cool. But then the minute he's like faced off with Holland, like, no, dude, you've never had to actually try or like push or fight. Like, here you're having to do that. And so I kind of have more thoughts on that as like we kind of get into more of like the other part. So I'll save the rest of it. But like that quote like really stuck with me. And then the other thing that really stuck with me was how the fight ended. So it really seemed in the beginning that like Holland was going to kill him. I was just like, all right, here we go. We're going back to where Holland almost killed him. But it kind of seemed like he stopped. So right at the end, Kell, I guess, like takes like a metal bar and like shoves it, or he uses his magic to like shove it right through Holland and through his chest.
Yeah.
And so there's just like this whole inner monologue going on that said Holland knew he'd seen the attack coming and he hadn't stopped it. The instant before the metal struck him from behind, Holland had stopped fighting. It was only a second, a fraction of a breath, but it had been enough to give Kell the edge, the opening. And in the sliver of time after the metal pierced his body and before he fell, it wasn't anger or pain that crossed his face. It was relief. And that made me really sad because like in the last episode that we talked about, I thought he was like the super ruthless guy who like doesn't care. I mean, obviously he didn't have to kill, right? But I think he was just being like, he was under a compulsion spell, and the fact that he was tethered to Athos, like he was forced to do all these things, right? And he knew that the only escape out of that was death. And that just made me so sad for him. Yeah. And like for a split second, he stopped fighting because he knew that was going to be his only way out.
That was his out.
Yeah.
Yeah. And like last time we talked about how he revealed to Kell that no, it wasn't just a compulsion spell. He was under a soul spell that cannot be broken. So yeah, death was his only way out. And so we weren't sure if Holland truly wanted to kill Kell or was just, following orders from Astrid and Athos because of the spell he's under and can't get out of. And so like this is confirmation here. And like back to what he said to Kell during the fight, like you've never had to fight for your life. You've never had to struggle. Like you're pampered, you're this, you're that. Like that's why you can't win here. And like, again, Holland, similar to Lila, is a product of his environment, like a ruthless, cruel, like white London where it's dog eat dog. It's like the most cunning is the one who ends up on top, and he just got bested. So, he's really a victim in this whole thing. And like, even though he's been like very much a villain throughout the story, like at the end of the day, it was all under Astrid and Athos' spell that was on him that he could not get out of. So it is really sad.
As we're discussing, I'm like, ooh, I'm pretending that I'm still in the classroom. And now I'm teaching high schoolers, right? Like, I would use this book as a way to teach about disparity and privilege, right? Because you're getting Kell is incredibly privileged. And I think what pushes it to arrogance is because he's not realizing that he's privileged. Right. And why would he when you're not? Well, he should, because he has had exposure to Grey London and White London. And that, to me, almost like, as I'm thinking about it, that makes him even more arrogant for not truly taking the time to realize the differences and how privileged he is and the disparity between the different Londons. We get a sense that he does realize it, and he does feel bad that Red London made the decision to cut themselves off, right? And now White London, he realizes that, but he doesn't truly apply it to his everyday dealings and his day-to-day. He can think of the bigger picture all he wants, but there are those moments where his privilege is showing. And it takes Holland to call him out here again, right? Lila calls him out the first time, and I feel like that's when his eyes, open a little bit. And now Holland is doing the same thing, like you were saying, and he's getting a definite reality check here. And I do feel for Holland, right? Because he is a victim in all of this. He certainly made his decisions, right? He was trying to get control of White London as well, but he just didn't come out on top. And this is the end, that he gets with his journey. That didn't make any sense. I'm not going to keep that.
Everything else you said was amazing, though.
Yeah, that was perfect.
All right. So that pushes us.
What this is making me think of is like the way that the Irids were judging Violet and Darna about her story and why she chose to be a what was it, a sword tail? Not a feather tail.
Scorpion tail.
A scorpion tail.
Yeah. So like it's the same arrogance, right? Like they had no choice, but like Holland had no choice but to be ruthless and cruel and cunning because of his environment, because it was that or death or where he ended up in,
I mean, look who he was being controlled by.
Right.
Yeah. So speaking of, because the next part pushes us further, Kell has his moment with Holland, makes his way to White London. And now we get into some closing scenes here. We've made it to, the ultimate boss, right? We're in White London and we're with the twins. And Kell and Lila keep in tone with how we've been navigating this whole series, right? Where we split up and then we come back together. This time we're splitting up because they've created a plan that Lila's going to go after one, Kell's going to go after the other. And it just so happens that Kell is going after Athos and Lila is going after Astrid. And that's where we end up with this scene. And this is really good.
Yeah.
I could not put down these chapters in particular.
Yeah. Well, it's just another like back-to-back scene, right? Like cut to Kell and Athos, cut to Astrid and Lila. And so obviously it was smart of them to split up like that because they need to split the twins up. So, first we see that Kell walks in through the north entrance that takes him straight to the throne room, and then he engages Athos and like lures him out to like the courtyard so that then Lila can come in through the south entrance and get to Astrid.
Yeah, I really appreciated, like, I guess, this is funny because, like, I call myself a reader, but I feel like I've just recently been, like, more of a reader, and I've been really picking up on people's, like, different writing styles, right? And so, even though I've been reading forever, I haven't really I really have not put much thought into people's writing styles. I've always just kind of absorbed the story, right? And so I really love how V.E. Schwab like so effortlessly blended these two battles for us to read. Like it was probably one of my most favorite sections of the book. it was so back and forth. It didn't feel like I was getting a whiplash. It felt like I was like living both battles at the same time. Like I'm like imagining a huge castle and like one battle happening here, the other battle happening here, and I'm like literally living both battles at the same time, even though I'm like flipping through the pages, like reading this, right? It was just so good, and the way she wrote it was just so amazing. So like, you know, hands down to you, B. Schwab, if you ever listen to this, right? But it was so good, and honestly, it was just really smart of them to split up. They each had their own battle. They knew they had their own role in this defeat, right? And they knew it was a trap. Like I'm glad that like going in, they already knew that, because like if they thought going in that they weren't going to have to face anything, I'm just like that was going to be bad for them. So I'm glad they knew it was a trap. They already expected the worst going in, and so like that was a really good start in my opinion to like this whole freaking battle scene. It was so good. It was so good.
Totally.
Yeah, it was like both of their character development and growth had been building up to this point, right? Like where Lila was like, yes,
to the ultimate boss fight.
Yes, like I get where you're coming from. We're on the same page now. Yep. Now we can truly work together. Yeah. And it just seemed like a puzzle piece where this all just fit so perfectly together. Yeah. Now, it didn't mean that they didn't encounter some challenges, because they definitely did.
Oh, yeah.
But one such challenge I feel like is a little side quest before we get to the boss on Lila's end. But before did I cut you off, Steph? I didn't know if you were going to say anything. Oh, okay, no, you're good. Perfect. Okay, so we get to Lila's portion first, where she doesn't encounter Astrid right off the bat. To get to Astrid, there's a guard in her way. And this is a flashback from all the way at the beginning of the book, where we see Athos doing his evil experiments on these poor people, and this one kid who shows defiance in his eyes and hatred towards Athos. Athos is like, yep, you're my experiment. You're my next one. Step on up. You're the lucky winner. And so he does the bond, right, that they did with Holland, the soul bond to this poor kid. And now this kid is standing in between Lila and Astrid. And she's like, man, I'm going to, like, something's off about this. Like, it's clear that he doesn't want to do this, but at the same time, I have to get through.
Yeah.
And so it's confirmation again, like with Holland, right, that this bond can only be undone with death, right? Yeah. So she did have to kill Belloc.
But like, okay, so, and something that was interesting with Lila's experience walking up through the south entrance is that she noticed that all of their guards, and Jen, you mentioned this earlier, all of their guards are under compulsion spells. And so they're not truly motivated to protect their royals. No. So they just let her stroll in.
Yes.
Until she got to Belloc, who was positioned at the door to the throne room.
Right.
And he also, his motivation is not really, or loyalty is not really towards them. Like he doesn't really care. He tells her several times, I can't leave this door.
Right.
And then, you know, leading her to realize I'm going to have to kill this kid. And then he ends up actually like basically begging her to do it and to do it quickly. She asks like, how do you want it? And he says, quick. Yeah. Like, just make it quick. So like, that's so heartbreaking, you know, like this poor kid, like his only hope for release out of this is death.
Yeah, that made me really sad, honestly. Like, and I went back to what I thought about Holland. Like, at first I painted him as the freaking villain. I painted him as this like terrible person out to kill anybody, but in reality, like, he was just being manipulated and used by the twins, and exactly what this poor kid was going through. And so I'm just glad that Lila got to kind of end his suffering. It's sad, but at the same time, like, happy for this kid, because he probably felt relief, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting how Kell and Lila both have a similar interaction like that.
Yeah.
Where they basically put someone out of their misery. Right. And there's relief on both of them. Holland feels relief. This kid is like, oh, finally, like, I really don't have to do what they say anymore, you know?
Yeah. Oh, after, we kind of get that little interaction between Belloc and Lila, it kind of goes into Kell and Athos. And so earlier we found out that Athos had the other half of the Blackstone, right? And so he's using this to kind of battle Kell. So Kell and Athos have their little showdown, right? And it was interesting that in the middle of them battling, Kell started using some of Holland's tricks. And it got mentioned too. He was like, oh, he like froze or he didn't freeze the floor. It was like, I think he like broke the floor or something, like
earthquake
the
style.
stone.
Yeah. Like, he did like an earthquake thing, right? And he even said like, oh, remembering Holland's
like
attack,
Holland,
right?
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
And so he kind of started thinking more like Holland, started thinking a little bit more ruthless. Like, okay, I know that I'm not going to be able to beat Athos unless I start using more, ruthlessness in this, right? And so like I thought that was a little interesting. He just kind of started throwing that in there. And so he knew it worked. He used it against Athos. And it honestly, like the way Athos was just kind of like messing with Kell, and he just seemed to like enjoy that bloodshed. Like I was just like, it was just so chilling, honestly. I was just like, how freaking twisted do you have to be to enjoy that much pain and bloodshed? Because he even made that comment about Holland. Like Athos made that comment. He said, Holland kind of found that like a way to meet, what did he say? And I don't remember what he said, me to like, anyways, whatever. So he even said like, even Holland didn't enjoy that part of the thing, but he knew it was a way to get what you wanted, right? Which is to show a little bloodshed, show a little pain. But Athos himself really enjoyed that piece of like battling. And so like I thought that was crazy. I still think Astrid is crazier than her brother, but I mean it still shows like how crazy Athos is. And he honestly just like taunts Kell to like use the Blackstone. And so like here kind of Kell has that moment where like he's back and forth, like, do I use the stone? I don't want to use it because I know it's already consuming me, just like Colin said it was. But he's like kicking my ass and I could die if I don't use it. So like there's a lot of back and forth. Athos really pushes him until he finally gives in and like starts using the Blackstone. And so like that really makes me really nervous for him, because it's like, it's already in you, dude, and you're just using it more, letting it more into your soul. Like that whole situation like was just really, I was just really nervous for Kell. I mean, I didn't think that he was strong enough to fight Holland.
Right. It was already taking him over. And was it in his battle with Holland or with Athos that one of them said to him, you already let the magic into your soul?
It was Holland.
By binding it to your soul, So like your corruption has already begun, and then Athos noticed that as well and was like, yeah, just keep using it. Go ahead.
Yeah.
So that is scary.
Yeah.
So now Kell and Athos are duking it out. We're back to Lila, and she's gotten past Belloc. And now she enters the throne room where Astrid is. And something's off to begin with, because Lila walks in. I think she's expecting like this big fight, right? Like she walks in like, where are you? I'm here. But Astrid is just sitting there, is just sitting on the throne. But she realized that there's kind of like, again, this gleam in her eye, right? That she recognizes from the Red Royals in Red London. And she's like, oh, she's still doing her thing in Red London. Okay, well, this is perfect. I have an easy target. And so she pulls out the gun and takes her shot, but it ricochets. And she's like, oh, it can never be easy. Right. And then this kind of sets off the next slew of events.
Well, it ricocheted.
I was surprised by that.
Yeah.
Like, so she had a shield over herself because, of course, her doing this, whatever way she was possessing people over in Red London, left her vulnerable in White London, like her actual body. And so she had a shield over herself, but it wasn't visible to Lila. So she thought, like, I used the gun before, so I'm going to use it again. And then it backfired on her and like actually shot her in the shoulder. And I was like, crap, like you can't use the same tricks that worked in Red London in White London. You have to be smarter than that here.
Well, and I think that just goes to show like how little she knows about magic too, right? Because it's like she wasn't expecting a shield to be put up. She wasn't expected like anything to really go against her. She's like, easy target, let's just whatever, right? But yeah, she noticed it, right? She noticed the shield. She like said something about noticing that the air shivered and shone, flecked with glassy shards of light with magic. The one thing it goes back to like what we've already said about Lila. Like she's so observant, right? She notices the runes right away. Like she notices them right on the stone. She's like, oh wait, okay, if there's a shield, that means there's a way to link the shields together. And if there's a link, then there's a way to break the links. And so like she immediately puts that together and she's like, okay, how can I break the link? And she just starts taking her knife and like starts scraping the runes off and like immediately gets rid of the rune or immediately gets rid of the shield, right? I was like, how freaking clever. Like, I don't know that I would have put like boom, boom, boom together. Like that was like quick thinking.
Right.
But then I thought too, like, how do you guys like, how did y'all think that Astrid figured out her body was like no longer protected? Because like the minute the shield was gone, that's when Astrid woke up. And so I thought, do you think like the minute she felt vulnerable, like she knew she had to come back to her body? Or like, what do you think like signaled her to like come back?
Maybe she felt the impact of the bullet trying to pierce the shield, you know? And then maybe it was part of the way she was possessing people in Red London to have the shield over her. Because once, like you mentioned, when she scratched away one of the runes and like got rid of the shield, it's like it woke her up, you know? Like that action was the cause of her waking up. So
that's what I was
part of that spell.
Too. Yeah. Okay. I was thinking that as soon as she, you know, scratched the rune away to make her way into the shielded area, that's what signaled to Astrid like, oh, my body's not safe anymore. Yeah. Right. Yeah. Like I feel like because she probably cast those runes, right?
Right.
And so that was her own magic, and she can feel someone tampering with it. Or that's how I thought of it. That's where that little chapter leaves off, right? And it's kind of a little mini cliffhanger where Lila is about to go in for the kill. And that's when Astrid like catches her arm, basically like, oh, you're cute. Like, let's try this again. And then we immediately get pivoted back to Kell and Athos, which is a pretty freaking awesome scene. To me, like it called back to the scene where Lila uses the stone for the first time. And and she, you know, projects a Kell clone. And, you know, has him strip, and as he's in mid-dress, you know, when they realize that they're trying to dispel him because he was created with magic, that's when he's like, no, like we see something shift in the magically cloned Kell, like you can't get rid of me and now I'm about to kill you. So we get a little bit of a callback here with this scene.
Well, it was good because like Kell tricked him into doing that because he remembered that moment with Lila when he tried to dispel the clone of Kell. And so he was like, okay, so yeah, go ahead, use the stone. And so he like generates a serpent out of the stone. And then what was it that caused the serpent to turn around on Athos? I can't remember.
Well, so Kell taunts him to create the serpent, right? Because he's like, he knew that. And then he taunts him again and says, wait, why do you have to have something to kill me when you said you wanted to kill me yourself?
That's it. Yeah.
You know,
so then he tries to dispel the serpent, and the serpent was mad about that. So he turns on Athos. That was good.
I thought it was so clever because, like, now you're seeing Kell going outside of the box, right? Like, before, all he had to do was rely on his magic. All he had to do was rely on the elementals that he could wield, the Antari magic. Like, he never really had to try. Like, this is something we've already talked about. And so, like, not only did he really have to think outside the box with, like, Athos in the beginning, with Holland in his fight, like he had to think outside the box there. But now he has to think outside the box with Athos because he knew Athos is strong. He knew he wasn't going to be able to beat him just with magic. Like he had to like manipulate him into something. So I thought that was really funny that he did that because he knew what happened when you try to dispel magic that gets created by the Black Stone. Like it doesn't want to be dispelled easily. And so I thought it was funny, the serpent turned around and just kills Athos. I'm like, really killed by your own magic? Like, I thought that was great.
Well, what's funny is that they keep mentioning that Astrid and Athos have other people do the dirty work for them. Yeah. So Kell turned that around on them. And he was like, I'm just going to have you do the dirty work for me here.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I thought that was really great. I love that part. I mean, kudos for Kell for thinking about that, honestly.
Yeah, he's learning finally.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, right?
Yay.
Yeah, I love how we get, growth and development from all these other characters before the end, and now here's Kell right at the end doing all of the growing.
He needed to, or he was going to die.
Yeah.
Right, and because, we see it with him using some of Holland's commands of the magic language that he was doing, and he's like, oh, I was like, freaking finally, right? Like, it's about damn time, because how do we get to the end of the book? And I feel like I know more about Lila than I do about Kell, right?
No, agreed.
Yeah, and I think it's because Lila has those very obvious growth moments, whereas we don't get as much of that with Kell until the ending.
Yep.
In this moment,
Yes. And so with that, before we left Lila and Astrid does something that I thought was kind of cool and also incredibly freaky. Yeah. But she makes herself look like Lila. And I was like,
oh my God.
When I read that, I was like, oh no. There's going to be some trickery here. And so we pivot back to Kell, Athos. They've fought. Athos falls, right? Athos is dead. And Kell is recovering a little bit after that battle. And out walks Lila. And I thought this moment was great. Just how the ending was a little fitting.
Yeah.
What did y'all think of this ending?
So what he does, Lila asks him to give her the stone, right? And instead of doing that, he actually uses the stone, or did he just use his blood magic against her to turn her into stone?
Well, he gets he creates a knife first to stab her.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
And then turns
so he stabs her instead of turning over the stone, then turns her into stone. And then he was like, that's not enough. If someone takes her out of this spell, then she's back. So then he cracks the stone and disintegrates her into a million little pieces. And that's the end of Astrid. And then Lila comes out and she was like, how did you know that wasn't me? And he was like, you said please. Or she said please.
She said please.
Yeah.
I love so much.
I did love that moment.
I loved it.
It was so good.
It was so good. We kind of I kind of think about that part too, where I'm just like, how did he know? Obviously that was a joke, right? So how did he actually know that wasn't Lila? And so I
have some thoughts about that.
Well, I go back to I think that their relationship really grew in a short amount of time. They really grew to know each other really well. He knows her mannerisms. He knows just how cunning Astrid is. So I think he expected that, especially after Astrid took over Rye's body, And so it's one of those things where it's she's probably going to pull something off like that, because as much as we hate to say it, Lila really wasn't a match for Astrid. Let's just be real. Did she even have a chance against her? She really didn't. She kind of got caught immediately. And so when Kell said that, he didn't say that to hurt her feelings. He said it because it's a matter of fact. Yeah. So I think that the minute Lila walked out, he was like, oh no, this is not Lila. There's no way she bested Astrid. And so I think he just knew, and he knew both of them so well that there was just no way that was going to be Lila. And he kind of knew that Astrid would pull something like that. But I love that he turned her into stone and just shattered the crap out of her. I was just like, okay, bye-bye twins. Get the fuck out of here.
And what's funny is that there are statues in this courtyard that all seem to be in some stage of duress. So it's maybe they have done this to their enemies at some point and they use them as trophies in this courtyard. So it's really gross, And so he even in his inner monologue, he's she becomes one of these statues that they probably created. And then he was like, but that's not enough. I have to get rid of her. So when Lila comes out and he makes that joke, oh, she said please, so I knew it wasn't you. I honestly don't think that Kell truly knew it wasn't her. I think it was potentially the stone fighting against Astrid, because Astrid was coming out to kill him, to get the stone and get the two pieces together. And I think that the stone, because So we have throughout the book some inner monologue coming from the black magic that is produced from the stone. And the black magic at some point, while it's like overtaking Kell's body, mentioned something like Kell was the ultimate vessel for this black magic.
Right.
Because it, you know, as we know, eventually the vessels that black magic chooses will disintegrate, but in an Antari it can stay in that vessel forever. So this was the ultimate vessel for the black magic, and it wanted to protect this vessel from any harm. So I really don't know if I believe Kell that he knew for sure that it wasn't Lila. I think it was the black magic that was already overcoming him, wanting to protect his life so that it could continue to proliferate.
That's interesting, because I also thought about it from a different perspective. So it's interesting that all three of us have different things. But because it's been brought up before that Holland and Kell could sense each other.
Right.
Yeah.
And so I thought it was more along the lines of that, because up until this point, Kell did not think that she was magical at all. But then his master said, no, she has magic.
Right.
She has it's just untrained, it's untapped. So maybe he thought, well, maybe I should be on the lookout for her. Maybe like I can sense when she's coming. And so if that were true, she would have a very distinct, I don't like smell.
Yeah.
I don't like what is it?
Yeah, and they do
Feeling?
mention each other's smell, like, and Holland. Kell smells like flowers,
Oh,
and
that's right.
Holland smelled like smoke and ash or something like that,
Yes.
right?
Yeah.
So like there's a distinct smell to them, to their magic specifically.
Yeah,
So
and
maybe Kell started picking up on that from like going through this whole journey with her.
Yeah, so that's how I was like, oh, he probably just, sensed, with magic that it was her.
That it wasn't
or
her.
that it wasn't her.
I love that the three of us came up with 3 different reasons.
Yeah. This is why this is so fun, y'all.
I know.
All right, so ding dong,
And I
the
see
twins are
merit
dead.
to all three,
Yeah, I really do too.
Yes, I bond. Yeah.
all of them.
Yeah. All right. So ding dong, the twins are dead.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And now we're at the final sections. I want to go over these 2 points together because I think they kind of go hand in hand. Is we do have this final standoff. We thought the Danes were the final boss, but really the final boss is the Black Stone itself and the Black Magic. So we have this final standoff between Kell and this inner Black Magic presence, right? That has taken on its own kind of sentience and is basically having a conversation with Kell in his brain. Much like give in, like I need you to, like, think of all we could do together, basically, that kind of come to the dark side speech.
Yeah.
And
Okay, Darth Vader.
Yes, yeah,
Totally.
very, very Darth Vader vibes here. And then to me, like, I think I kind of echo y'all's sentiments here, like after reading your message, but he has a very simple way to defeat this boss. And I was like, ugh, eye roll here. Like, what are we doing? So give me your thoughts, because I was I loved the book, but up until this point, I was like, oh, well, that's kind of anticlimactic.
Yeah, so as he's struggling to like not allow the black magic to completely consume him, Lila, like on the outside, is yelling at him like, what's that command? Like, let me try it. Like, we need to dispel it. And he's like battling, like struggling with the dark magic, trying to like hear out Lila, because he hears her in the background, but it's like he can't like come back to himself because the magic is overtaking him, and so he starts trying to yell it out. He's like, boss, and then so like in this moment I'm thinking this is why we needed Lila the whole time. Like, her voice was what brought him back to reality, back to himself and the mission that was at hand. And like, if not for her, like really all would have been lost at this point.
So I really thought this was like a super interesting chapter, like when Batari, right, which is the magic, really started speaking to Kell and like really tried to fully consume him, and like Lila could physically see the black like just overtaking his body, right?
Yeah.
And so honestly, like my thought kept going back to like the inner struggle that Kell was having. And it just made me think about like, and I think maybe because like I'm having some inner struggle with myself, like as I'm trying to like get through my own dissertation and like my own inner struggles of like, am I smart enough to do this, right? And I just feel like there are times where we have all these inner struggles and like having to push past these thoughts and feelings at times where we forget that we have people to turn to that really can pull us out of these like struggles, right? And like that's honestly what I kept thinking about, like as I'm reading Kell have these struggles with himself, is that yes, Lila is pulling him out of this, but honestly, what made him really snap out of it was the minute she mentioned Rye. And so like the minute she says, if you die, what happens to Rye? That's what pulled him out of it. It wasn't Lila. Like, yes, Lila was the voice of reason, pulling him, like thinking him through, but it was really the fact that he didn't want to lose Rye. So like, to me, like that's what really pulled him out of that, was the mention of Rye. And like going back to what you guys said, like, oh, he could have easily dispelled this with that one dispel thing. But I think it goes back to like what Holland said, right? He never actually had full control over the magic. Like he let the magic control him. And so as he was listening to Lila yelling at him to like do this, he had to fight to take control over the magic. And so he not only did he have to think the command, he had to say it out loud for it to actually take over. And so like that was the whole struggle. And I think that's what forced him to like finally say it. And to me, like that moment showed Kell's full character development. Like he was finally forced to fight for something real. And that wasn't easy for him, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, that's interesting to look at it through that lens. That makes it, I guess, a little more bearable than just like an easy dispel spell.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, speaking of their bond, right? Rye, poor Rye over here goes through quite the roller coaster, right? Where he's possessed by Astrid. He's stabbed and killed by Astrid with his own body.
Right.
He's revived with dark blood magic and tethered to Kell, right? And like, thank God you're awake. Thank God you're alive. By the way, we're bound for life.
And...
you
die, I die.
Isn't that great?
Yeah.
But that immediately made me think of, and I want your thoughts on this. I was like, it kind of proves his privilege a little bit again, because what makes him any better than Athos, right? Because he's done this spell. It's like a soul bond, pretty much, right? He doesn't have control, or we don't know, but we can assume that he doesn't have the same amount of control over Rye that Athos did the others. But I mean, he still used he still made that soul choice, right? If I can overcome death, I'm going to, no matter what the consequence may be. Right. So yeah, like, what's your take? That may be a little bit of a hot take for me.
Well, so what I took away from this interaction when he's like revealing to Rye what all happened to him since being possessed by Astrid, like he was worried that Rye wouldn't want to be bound and tethered to Kell in that way because maybe he looks down on him. But Rye's reaction wasn't that exactly. He was just like, oh no, like, Kell, what did that cost you though? At what cost? And not necessarily that he wouldn't want to be bound to him, but like feeling for his brother that he had to do that for him. And so in this moment, this is where I'm like, oh, okay, I do now fully get the sense that Rye and Kell's relationship is really sincere and genuine. Like they both care for each other and they'll do anything for each other. And beforehand, when, back when he made that choice to bind his life to Rye's, I was worried that like maybe Rye wouldn't do that for him. Like I don't know that he would, but I think he would if like given the option after seeing this interaction.
I'm still not convinced. I'm not convinced about Rye's affection for Kell. Let me tell you why though.
Okay.
Although now that Ethan mentioned the whole arrogance part of Kell, kind of acting like Athos, that kind of makes me rethink a little bit about what I'm about to say. But let me just tell you my initial thoughts. So it almost seemed like Rye was angry in the beginning that he was tethered to Kell. He kind of tried to make it off as playful, but to me it didn't really come off as playful. It kind of that's how he really felt. He did not want to be tethered to Kell. And I guess I get it, right? I don't want to be tethered to anybody, right? I don't want my life to depend on somebody else's life, right? And that's a huge commitment. I mean, people have a commitment marrying someone. Can you imagine tethering your soul to someone? So that already put me off, right? And then I felt like I was right about my initial thought on Rye that he was jealous of Kell. He was beating himself up about what happened with Holland and the necklace that he gave him. And even Kell like asked him like, well, why did you take the necklace from Holland? Like, why did you do that? And it wasn't in a bad way. I think he just wanted to know, like, why did you take it, right?
Yeah.
And Rye says,
like you knew better,
right? Yeah. And even Rye says, like, I know I knew better, but I wanted to take it anyways. And so he tells Kell, Holland said it would bring me strength. And then Kell tells him, well, you're already strong. And Rye says, not like you. That is, I know I'll never be like you, but I have no gift for magic and it makes me feel weak. One day I'm going to be king. I wanted to be a strong king. And even like after that whole confession, like he also says like he was more worried about the loss of his crown. The fact that he took that necklace from Holland and like started this whole thing, he was upset about possibly losing his crown. He wasn't upset about possibly losing Kell, or what that would mean for Kell, or what that would mean for his family. Like, the only thing he kept thinking about was my crown, my position. So to me, he doesn't, like, he might care, but I don't think he cares like Kell cares. And I don't think that he would do what Kell did. Like, I don't think that he would go above and beyond as much as Kell did for Rye. So to me, like that, it's not reciprocated.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think that kind of points out a little bit of privilege from Rye as well. Like, I don't think that there's any ill will towards Kell from Rye, the way I read it. I think that he's very quick to say, I'm going to be king. To like, and he's very quick, even though he's like, we've taken you in, you are my brother, right? Even though there's that, there's still the side of Rye that is very quick to say, no, this is my destiny. My destiny is to be king. Just like Kell's is to be Antari, but there's still that, like, I'm going to have to put you in your place over here, even though that may not be how he means it to come across.
Right.
But to me as a reader, when I read that, I was like, oh, like, I'm going to be king. Like, these are my plans. That's what I thought of.
I just took it as like, there is no other way that this ends up for the royals. Like, the Antari are the Antari, and he's the next in line for the crown. That's the way this is going to go.
But
and like, yeah, there might be some arrogance to that, but that's just like all he knows. That's what he's grown up to know, you know?
Yeah, product of his environment, just like Holland and
But I mean, like, he claims to care about his brother, and yet his actions don't show it. I don't know. Like, to me, again, I don't hate Rye. I'm not saying that. I just don't think that he's a devoted brother that people all make him out to be.
Okay, so I'm going to go through my original theory that I had before I finished this book, but it was one that I remember from reading it the first time around. And I thought, like y'all did at the beginning, that the Red Royals were suspicious.
Right.
And I still think that the king and queen might be a little sus. Not Rye.
I do agree with that. Yeah.
Because there's still a whole lot to answer for that we don't know about Kell's childhood, where they adopted him from, or however that process was.
Right.
We don't know anything about that. So that's why, to me, they're still a little sus. But when I read the first time I read this book of Holland and Rye talking in his room, and he gives him the neck that we know now that is the necklace, and he's like, it's for strength. And then I realized that Kell was adopted. He's Antari. He can also, maybe because, you know, Holland is also Antari, maybe that means that Kell also has the potential to provide strength to Rye as well. I thought Rye was sick at some point in time, because he's not a strong magic user. He's always like, he's like the damsel in distress almost, right? Like he's
twice now, right?
Right. He was possessed by Astrid. He fell for Holland. Like, it presents as a sickly image in my brain. His character is sick. So I thought that the Red Royals were kind of like raising Kell as meat, or like a power supply for Rye, because they really love Rye, and Kell is expendable.
Right.
Just to make Rye strong. You know, that's where my brain was when I first read this. But as I was reading it the second time, I was like, I mean, we don't know. We just don't know if Rye is sick.
I do agree with you on the part that I do think the Red Royals are still sus, because when Kell was telling them about what all happened, they were not ready to like forgive him for all the havoc that happened, and like they weren't going to. I guess they weren't grateful, it seemed like, for ultimately dispelling that black magic and getting rid of it, until Kell was like, when they asked about Rye, he was like, he's alive and his life is bound to mine. So if I die, he dies. And they were like, oh, okay, got it. So if not for that, I don't think they would have taken him back in.
I agree.
You know?
Yeah. They
I think
didn't
that kind
like
of
him.
confirms. I think that kind of confirms our suspicions, at least, that they don't. They obviously do not view him the same way as they view Rye.
Right.
Rye and Kell call each other brothers, but to Kell's point, he is not family.
Yeah.
Right.
And this interaction kind of proves that.
Yeah.
That they kind of just tolerate Kell.
Right.
And I was like, oh, this isn't a happy, like, oh, our son, our other son is also safe.
Yeah.
No. Yeah, that was not the case.
They were pissed.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So that's the Kell and Rye bond. And now we kind of transition into our final parts here of, we're back to Lila and Kell. And Lila, a little interesting. I guess it's not really a surprise. Maybe y'all may have been surprised, but she doesn't have anything necessarily to tie herself back to Grey London. And why would she want to return when she knows now, first, that she has magic, and two, when there are plenty of ships for the taking in Red London. But so because we're obviously back to Red London now.
Yeah, I loved her little exit here. So when they were telling the Red Royals about the whole story and what they did to save them, Lila made sure to be like, with my help, I did it too.
Yeah.
And then she even insert in there like, and Kell said that he would pay me back for it. So like she was going to make sure that she was, she was giving her flowers for what she did in the mission as well. And so like they're walking together and Kell offers to take her back to Grey London. She was like, no, there's nothing there for me anymore. You know, like I'm going to stay here. And then he gives her one of those little board games that he mentioned earlier that kids use to practice their magic and see if they have an affinity for any of the different elements. And like, I'm hoping that she uses it and like builds up her magic powers, because like I still feel like maybe she's Antari, and maybe that'll get revealed with this, but we don't know yet. Like there's still a couple more books in the series, so we'll see. And then like at the end she's like looking out over the river and like all these ships, and she like points one out and she was like, oh, that one's perfect. So I wonder if that will ultimately be her like final piece of the puzzle that she needed for her adventure and to become the pirate that she always wanted to be.
Was really sad to see Lila go. I was a little heartbroken, honestly, when she walked away. Honestly, like I felt a little heartbroken when she walked away from Kell and like didn't look back. I was just like, why? Like after everything you guys just went together, like, or you just went through together, like you didn't even look back to say bye to Kell. But I get it. Like she needed to have this for herself. This is what she's been wanting. Like she finally helped a friend through this like really difficult time, and now it's like her turn to like finally do something for herself, feel free, so like I understand. So I'm not mad at her, I'm just like heartbroken about the situation, right? But honestly, like what I thought would happen before we got to the end was that Kell was going to take her under his wing, mentor her, and then she could go off and have her adventure. So like that's what I thought would happen, but like immediately she went off on her adventure. And I don't know if your book has it, but like my book has like a preview chapter to the next book. And so I read that after I finished it, and like that was already super interesting to read, like kind of part of her adventure. And I'm like, oh my gosh, she already gets into trouble, because like right before Kell says bye to her, he like pretty much says like, stay out of trouble, and then she smiles, almost saying like, of course I won't, right?
Yeah.
And so I love that part. But yeah, honestly, I was just really sad that she left. Like I really thought she was gonna stick around and like he was gonna mentor her, and like I wasn't thinking any kind of like relationship between them besides like friends,
Yeah.
Because I feel like neither one of them have really people to rely on, and so they could kind of be that person for each other.
Yeah.
Well, I'm sure there'll still be friends, like.
I know, but yeah.
But yeah, I just feel like she's finally setting off to do what she was always meant to do. So I'm excited for her.
Yeah.
All right, book friends, that's the end of our deep dive. Now we're going to discuss some of our predictions and final thoughts, predictions for the future books in this series, final thoughts, and we're also going to review what we thought of the book as a whole. So, who wants to start us off?
All right, so this is a rare one for me, but I gave this one a 5. I just couldn't find anything in this book that I didn't absolutely love. Like, the writing, the world building, the characters, their growth, just like everything for me in this book was just perfect. So this is a 5 for me. I really, really enjoyed this book. I loved so much about it, you know, from the story to the characters and all of that. So I can't wait to continue the trilogy. Like I mentioned at the very start, I went ahead and bought the trilogy as a box set in preparation for this. So I'm going to continue on and see what happens next for Lila and for Kell. And yeah, I just can't wait. I'm super excited.
So for me, it should come as no surprise, right? Like it's a 5-star for me. I remember like finishing the book and thinking like just wow, like wow, wow, wow. I absolutely loved this book. It was amazing. It was one of the first books I've read in a while that was just fantasy, like no romance. Because like I said, like I'm the romance girly of the group. So like I have to have some kind of romance story in there. So I absolutely ate this up. Loved it so much. The magic, the politics, the friendship, like it was all so great. I love seeing how like each character was a parallel to like the London they belonged to, and I absolutely loved the friendship between Lila and Kell. I think that was like probably my favorite part. I was really sad to see her go, but I'm so excited to read her story in book 2, so I cannot wait to dive into that. I'm still really curious as to what's going on with like Black London and how that's going to play out in the rest of the series, because like obviously we're not done with it. Like I know that
I'm so glad you brought that up.
Yeah,
Yes.
it's like I know that at the end we saw Kell take Holland's body that wasn't like exactly dead, and he put the stone and he threw both Holland and the stone into Black London. So like I know there's more to that. I want to know what's going on. I want to know what's going to happen. How is that going to play out? But I did love seeing Kell's character development. It's kind of something I like brought up like earlier. I almost feel like he started off as like this really arrogant person. He had no worries until he was finally faced with like something huge, and he had to figure out how to navigate that and like fight for something he cares about. So I love seeing that about Kell. And honestly, I can't wait to see how the rest of the series turns out.
Yeah.
Very good. So because I've read this before, I am going to go with my original rating that I gave it, which if I remember correctly, I did give this one a 5-star.
Yay.
So I'm usually one of the more, not cynical, but I am a little more stringent with my 5s that I give out. And I have a reasoning behind this because I think I kind of get poo-pooed on for reserving my 5s, but I don't read as quickly as other people. And so if I'm going to give out a 5, I want to give out a 5 to one that, I think really deserves it for me, because in a month, I usually read it's amazing if I read 3 books a month. So like, that's a really good month for me. And so, yeah, I'm going to give out my 5s sparingly. And I said what I said. But yes, I gave this one a 5.
Fair.
And
that's fair.
Yes, I think I originally gave it that because it was the first kind of fantasy that I had read like this. Usually I read a traditional epic fantasy. It's medieval in setting. We have magic, a very kind of clear magic system. We've got wizards and witches and dragons, and like that's my kind of fantasy. So this was very different. It had an urban fantasy kind of feel. A little bit of steampunk vibe as well to me, with especially when Lila is concerned. So yeah, all of that to say that yes, I gave this one a 5. Going into the next books, I'm a little concerned for Lila. I feel like she's been the voice of reason for the moment, but right now she's a question mark going into the other ones because she's in a place, Red London, where magic is thriving. She's never been exposed to magic. She doesn't know what it's capable of. I feel like next book might be her kind of struggle with the Black Stone kind of. And so like that's where my mind is leading towards. So I'm a little concerned. I hope she can pull through.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That makes
Okay. So
sense.
I totally forgot to give my predictions part in my review. Yes, Jen, you mentioned that Holland wasn't dead
Yeah.
when they sent him to Black London. And now White London is up for grabs. So I'm very curious, like, is Holland going to make his way back to White London and take over? Are we going to see him again? And then we talked about how we still think the Red Royals are sus.
Yeah.
So what other political schemings are going to happen in Red London? So
Oh yeah, I mean,
those are my predictions. I feel like those two things might happen, like something with the Red Royals, and then we'll possibly see Holland pop up again.
yeah, I mean, the twins gone, like anything could happen. And the fact that, like, it's been mentioned before that it's not easy to kill an Antari, you know, and that Kell did mention he wasn't gone. So
Cool. Okay, you guys. So that wraps up our final discussion on A Darker Shade of Magic. This was so much fun. We were so happy to be able to do this after our book bracket. And as you all know, we all love this book. So thank you all for joining in on the discussion. But please, let's continue the discussion. Find us on all our social media pages. We are Books Between Friends podcast on everything. We want to hear what your thoughts are. Did we miss something that you picked up on? Do you agree with us on our final reviews? So, we want this to be a continuation of this discussion beyond just this episode. And then for next time, we're going to start up our next book, which is going to be The Nightingale. So that was actually the second place winner of our book bracket that we did back in March. So that's why we decided to go ahead and do this one as well. So we'll be starting that next week, and we'll start off with chapters 1 through 10. So if you want to read along with us and join in on the discussion, make sure to read that part of the book before you listen to our next episode. So we'll catch you next time.